Hi, my name is Kim for Mark. I am the author of the book series, The Chronicles of Nadine, and I'm also an entrepreneur. In fact, I've been an entrepreneur for over 19 years. When I wanted to become an author, I thought to myself, I'm not just going to do this as a hobby, although that's a really noble pursuit as well. I wanted to create a business, one that would be able to produce income for my family long after I was not able to work anymore. I wanted this business to become an asset that was going to continue to produce and would become my retirement plan. Because as we know, retirement plans do not always last because rand dollar fluctuations and inflation means that we have less money than what we originally saved. So my long-term goal was that I would continue to be earning at the current rate. And that is why I started my author career. So I'm running a series of courses for brand new people that want to start an author career, and they want to do it with the view of having a long-term earning goal. Or if you do want to become a hobbyist, you want to leave some kind of legacy to your family that they can read afterwards, you would also need to follow some basic productivity skills. In this course, we are going to concentrate on only a small portion of the course, and that is going to be focusing on managing your best asset in your business, and that is yourself. So let's go onto our share screen that we can just find the notes for today. Okay, there you go. So welcome to How to Start Your Author Career. This is a completely free section of the course. There is a paid section, but this is going to be the free section that you can rewatch as many times as you like. It's going to be on YouTube as well. And it is for an absolute beginner. The tools you're going to need for this course is going to be your pen, a notebook, and of course, the most important thing, your mind. It's going to take approximately 20 minutes, but there will be some homework which you'll complete, and that will take between 2 to 4 hours. Okay, let's jump straight into the first module. Now, practical productivity for authors is going to cover a lot of different aspects. One of them is your mindset. When I became an author, I had to call myself an author. And this is a tip that I learned from Jerry Jenkins. The day you decide to become an author, you call yourself an author. I did a really wonderful entrepreneurship program, which was run by Barry Mitchell from the Uncovering Greatness team. And one of the things that he teaches us is to have more, you have to be more. So you first start by being the person that you want to become and doing the activities that are related to that industry so that at the end of the day, you can have more of what you want. So start today by calling yourself an author. You also need to have a set of goals. We will cover more of that in the bigger course, but for now, I need you to ask yourself, why are you becoming an author? One of the goals that I had is that I wanted to have a series of books that would incorporate aspects of my family that my children could read later. So one of my inspirations for my series, The Chronicles of Nadine, is actually my middle child. And she is a very feisty little girl. So there are times where you often hear us shouting, Nadine, because she's frustrating us. And she frustrates us with things like climbing onto the roof, teaching her brother to go from the tree to the carport, and then he fell and he hurt his head. So I wanted her to be able to celebrate who she was, and that when she reads it, when she is older, she can read it to her children, she can read it to her grandchildren one day, but it would be a little piece of history that she is in for the future. So that was one of my goals, to have a legacy to leave for my children. But then I also had financial goals. I wanted to be a best-selling author. I wanted to have a series. I wanted to produce a retirement plan. You are going to decide what your goals are. So I'm going to give you just a minute to write down a few of your goals. Right. So you might not have written down all of your goals, but you did have a moment to think about them. Then we're going to have to look at the tools that we need. What do you need to become an author? What do you need in terms of productivity? And that we will cover in the greater course. But you do need to be aware that you do need to have some tools to be a writer. Now, I want to say straight up front that when I became an author, I didn't have an expensive computer. I didn't have a budget for an editor. That's perfectly okay. If you don't have a big budget, you can start with absolutely nothing. You can start with your cell phone, with a notepad and a pen, and you can borrow a computer from time to time. In fact, I watched a video the other day where there was an author that only wrote all of his books in the library using the computers that were available for free at the library. So you can be an author, and it doesn't matter even if you don't have any budget whatsoever. Okay, now we're also going to cover in this course more in depth is your asset management, and that is you. And then we're going to do a little bit of productivity mathematics. So you're looking at this and you're thinking to yourself, I want to be an author. I don't want to be a mathematician or a statistician. I get that. Maths was not my strong suit. I have a lot of people that need to help me when I'm doing certain kinds of calculations, but it is a very simple illustration that can show you how to measure your productivity as an author. So let's get started. Right, asset management. Yes, that's you. There are three aspects that I'd like to cover in this. One of the first ones is enough sleep. So you might want to say to yourself, what does asset management have to do with being an author? A lot. If you are working in any company or you have an existing business, you're going to know that the company has assets. That could be machines, it could be computers, it could be delivery vehicles. All of those pieces of equipment need to be managed. It means that you might have to have a mechanic come and service your vehicles. You might need to have a maintenance plan. Maybe you have some software that you need to put onto the computer to make sure that it's virus protected. You might need to barcode it so that people are not stealing things. You might have some insurance policies to protect those assets. But basically, those assets are things that are going to help you to produce an income. As an author, before you have released your very first book, you are the asset. What happens in here, you are the asset. In fact, there are some authors who are established who have insurance policies specifically to protect themselves in case they are not able to produce anymore. If you break your arm, you're not going to be able to write using a keyboard. You're going to have to find another way of producing income. So can you see that you are an asset? So let's start with sleep. Sleep is vital for life, doesn't matter what career you're in. And statistics have shown us from clinical studies that lack of sleep can deprive you of productivity from between 11 to 17%. When we do our mathematics over here, we're going to use a lowest denominator 10 because, as I explained, I'm not a mathematician, but we do need to understand how numbers do affect our business. Then the next thing is buy the best chair that you can afford. When Jerry Jenkins started his author career, what he could afford was a couch with 2 kitchen chairs and a plank over the top. That's all he could afford. And that is where his office was. And if you don't know Jerry Jenkins, please Google him. He is an international bestseller. And he has written multiple novels. And now he's got a fantastic office. But he started with just the plank. But what you do need to know is you're going to spend a lot of time sitting in that chair. So start with what you have. But remember, the end goal is that you are going to get something that is going to help you to be productive. Now, in my former business life, I used to work for an office furniture company, and we sold the most fantastic office seating available. In fact, it was an international brand, and the international sales and marketing manager once gave me this analogy. He spoke to a couple of executives, and their chairs were not cheap. They were quite expensive, but they were incredibly well designed. And he asked the executives how much time the executives spend each day traveling in their car. And the average person was about maybe 2.5 hours in their vehicle. And when we looked at what they were driving, they were BMWs and they were Mercedes-Benz, Lexus, a whole lot of high-end vehicles. And you have a look at how much that car cost and how much time the person spent in the car, in their seat. And it was a very small percentage of their day. Then we asked, how much time do you spend sitting in your office chair? And that was a lot. It was very, very high. But people tend to scrimp on the seat, and that affects them in so many different ways in terms of productivity. Now, when I was studying art, we had a lecturer who was very, very strict about protecting our eyesight, protecting our posture, because if our body was functioning well, we were producing well. And so I want to tell you that as an author, make sure you protect your posture, make sure you use the best seat that you can currently afford. Budget for a better seat. Slumping in your seat reduces your lung capacity. And when your lungs are not able to get proper air in, what do you think happens to your productivity? How much fuel is going to your brain? So you've got to look at yourself almost like a car. If you're not servicing your car, if you're not maintaining your car, if you're not putting fuel in your car, then you're not going to go very far. That car is going to stall, and you as a person are going to stall no matter what industry you belong to. The next point is your hydration. So just dehydration of just 3 to 4% equals a loss of productivity between 25 to 50%. 25 to 50%. So between a quarter to a half of your day's productivity is lost because you are not hydrating. That gets me to our productivity maths. So what I did is I calculated on a good day, if I'm writing, how many words I write a day. I write approximately 1,300 words a day. If I'm doing a little bit of research, then that might drop. So for argument's sake, in my first book, I was doing a lot of research on medieval medical practices. One of my major characters is a healer, and so there were a lot of things that I wanted to unpack on what her life would be like. One of my characters died from diabetes, and I wanted to find out, how do you diagnose diabetes? What kind of treatments would be available? And in that time, this is a really gross thing. I love to tell the story because I love to have little interesting gross things. But one of the ways of diagnosing diabetes in medieval times was that the patient had to produce a small sample of urine, which is not unusual for us, but the physician tasted the urine. And if it tasted sweet, then they were told that they had honey sickness and they would have to change things in their diet. So really gross, but the illustration is that I took a lot of time to research that, and so my word count dropped. But if I'm not doing research and I'm writing just based on what I know or what I feel, then I will produce 1,300 words in a day. Now, that includes a little bit of basic editing, which I use in one of the tools, which helps me to be able to do self-editing before going to the expense of sending my book to an editor. That means that I would produce roughly 6,500 words a week if I was working only Monday to Friday. A typical book in my genre would be 90,000 words. So if I was writing full time, that would take me rounded up to 14 weeks to produce my first draft. And you will have to produce a couple of drafts. Do not be fooled to thinking that you put the end and then that is the end. There's still a lot of work to go. So the next max that we have to look. Now let's say I'm not sleeping. What did we say? It was between 11 to 17% loss of productivity. So I'm going to do this, the Maths for Dummies version, and I'm going to say that I lose productivity of approximately 10% because I didn't sleep, okay? On 1,300 words a day, that means that I will lose 130 words a day, which brings me down to 1,170 words a day. And I then change my weekly word count to 5,680 words, which means I'm now taking 16 weeks instead of 14 weeks to produce my novel. But then if I was very naughty, I wouldn't be drinking enough water. And that would give me a dehydration level, and I could lose between 25 to 50% of my productivity. So let's keep it at 25%. So I would lose 325 words. Disclaimer, I'm not a mathematician, so if you are really great at maths and you work out there are a couple of errors in the maths, that's okay. I can live with that. You'll get the principle. So that would change my writing down to 975 words instead of my 1,300 words. That would then change it to 4,875 words a week instead of my much higher level if I was at full optimum speed. So I would then go to 19,100 words, and I would have a major drop in my productivity. So with lack of sleep, I would work at 16 weeks. If with dehydration, I would work at 19 weeks. That means that I would be adding 7 weeks. I see there might be some typos here, but I think you're going to forgive me for this free course. So combined, I am adding 7 weeks to my productivity. That's a massive difference. So from 14 weeks, I'm adding on 7 weeks. So that's about half of my productivity that just goes out the window. Okay, so here are some tips that I can give to you to help in terms of your productivity. This is what I do. I start my day off with water. In summer, it would be cold water. In winter, it would be hot water and lemon. I find that when it's cold, I tend to drink a lot more coffee, but coffee dehydrates you. You may feel that it is making you get through the day, and yes, it is a stimulant, but it is dehydrating you, and that means that your brain functioning is not working at optimal level. So my recommendation is that for every 1 cup of coffee that you drink 1 cup of water as well. It really makes a big difference in terms of your hydration levels. Then in terms of snacking, you know, if you're going to the fridge every 5 minutes, how much productivity are you going to be getting done? On average, 80% of the work that we do only produces 20% of our results, and our society is suffering from perpetual busyness and not being effective. So the purpose of this course is to help you to find ways to improve your productivity so that you can up your effectiveness levels. Eat more protein snacks. Carbohydrate snacks do fuel you, and when it's cold, we tend to crave those. But don't stick to just carbohydrate snacks. Increase your protein snacks. It means that you will spend less time going to the fridge to snack. Then I have a set of writing goals that I have to put together, and one of the ways that I achieve that is to be friendly with other authors that are more established than me and authors that are less established than me. And we do what we call writing stints, where we're contacting each other and we say, On Friday at 2 o'clock, I'm going to be doing a writing stint. We all become accountable to each other and we write as much as we can for that hour or 2 hours, however long the writing stint is, and that helps us to spur each other on and to encourage us. I also set writing and marketing goals. When you are a hobbyist, then you can change your pace slightly because you're not going to be doing marketing activities. But when you are changing to a career and you wanting to build a legacy financially for your family, then you need to spend time marketing. Very established authors who have got high earnings, they tend to split their day 50-50, half of the day writing and half of the day doing marketing. As a new author, you're not going to be able to do that unless you have the privilege of being able to work from home full time. But if you've got a job to go to, if you've got some kind of career to go to, you're going to have to try and condense the amount of time that you're doing every day. And it is possible. I wrote my first draft of my novel in 2 weeks, and I completed my entire book with editing within 9 months. I was driven. I had a goal. My father was in hospital. He was quite ill. He'd been in hospital twice that year, and I really was very concerned on whether he was actually going to survive. I did not want my father to go to heaven without having seen that I had completed a book, because it was one of my dreams and I wanted him to be proud of me. And yes, there are some people that say, Kim, your dad would have been proud of you. In any case, I get that. But I really wanted to have a tangible book in my father's hands so that he could see what I had done. So I was very, very driven. I don't know what your goal is going to be. Maybe it's that by the time you turn 40, you're going to have written a book. You want to have something for show and tell for your kids' next first show and tell after COVID-19. I don't know what that goal is, but have a goal, something that's going to drive you. Then, very important, I call myself a writer. If someone asks me, I call myself a writer, and I train my family to respect my time. If mommy is doing some kind of marketing activity or writing, my family respects my time and they give it to me. They don't say, oh, well, it doesn't look like you're doing anything, or that's not important. You teach people how to treat you. You are the one that sets the boundaries. So do that. Set aside whatever your time is, and that is very important for the family to respect that. Okay, next up, here is your homework. You thought you were just going to watch me. I'd like to challenge you to choose one topic to write on. It can be anything. The most important thing for starting your career as an author is to be able to write. It can be garbage. It can be a wonderful work of art, but generally, the first thing that you write is going to be nonsense, unless you are incredibly gifted straight away. To get to greatness, you have to start with the nonsense. So my encouragement to you today is to choose a topic. Now, here are some ideas. Homeschooling during COVID-19. For some people, it would be a horror story. For some people, it would be a comedy. For some people, it would be a training manual. Then, how do you stay motivated? If I could speak to animals, it doesn't matter what you write, just start. You could even try rewriting the story. There are a lot of fairy tales out there, and you could write a modern version, an adult version, whatever you want. You could start with the story and rewrite it. The next thing that is on your homework list is, where can I find an hour a day? So I'm going to give you a moment to think about it. Some of the ideas that I've got is wake up earlier. That's what I did. I wrote from 3 o'clock until 7 o'clock in the morning. I had insomnia in any case, so that's when I woke up and that's when I did my writing. I did go to bed earlier, so I actually did get at least 7 hours sleep a night, but that is how I wrote, because the children were asleep, my husband was asleep, it was quiet. I wrote that way. Your next idea is cut back on 1 hour of TV or Netflix. Some people will say, but that's the time I relax and I've got a very stressful life. Do you know that writing is therapeutic? It can be a way for you to relax. And what we have to focus on is, what is your goal? I couldn't write that first book within the 9 months with editing if I didn't have a goal, if I didn't do some sacrifices. Then cooking 2 lots of meals and freezing. So you can say, well, today I'm going to make tonight's supper and tomorrow's supper. Or I'm going to cook the entire week, but every day I'm going to make 2 lots of meals and I'm going to put 1 in the freezer. And that means that next week I can write every day because I won't have to make supper. We'll just have to defrost and then we'll have to heat up. One of the things that I like doing is I like making 1-pot dishes. So research a couple of 1-pot dishes and see how you can slice out some cooking time. So here's your moment for you to think of ideas. Okay, if you don't have enough time, pause the video. Then I want you to work out in one day. Take a little notebook and work out in one day how many times you get up to make yourself coffee. Put a piece of paper or a post-it note onto the kettle or next to the kettle, and every time you get up to make a cup of coffee, put a tick. And at the end of the day, add all the ticks together. Did you have 4 cups of coffee? Did you have 10 cups of coffee? How many times did you go snack? How many breaks did you take from your work? What ends up happening is we start taking so many breaks that we end up not doing anything at all, except being busy and not being productive. So I want you to work out how many times that was. If you got up 4 times to make the coffee, then I suggest that you get a flask and you prepare 4 cups of coffee in advance, or tea, or whatever it is. If you write when you're doing wine, you don't have to get up too many times because you'll have the wine right in front of you. If you get up to drink water, keep that on your desk. And line up on your desk all of the different beverages that you need for as long as you need them. Okay, then I want to ask you, when you're writing your article, work out a baseline. How long did it take for you to do that homework? That will allow you to figure out how many words you were able to do in an hour. When you have your baseline, you know how you can improve or what to work towards, and you can find ways of improving your time by doing these other things. And here is a little bit of author wisdom if you are first time starting out. You can edit rubbish, but you can't edit nothing. So take the risk, write something. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can burn the paper, throw it away, or you can keep it to show what absolute rubbish you wrote in the beginning. I want to encourage you, research a little bit about Roald Dahl. He wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which has been remade into movies several times. He is a legend in the author world. But when I read one of his books when my eldest daughter was at school, they put at the back there what the different teachers had written about him, and it was terrible. You would have thought that he was the most unimaginative writer in the history of mankind, and he wouldn't amount to anything. And I bet there were a couple of teachers that later on thought, oh, I hope no one gets to find out that I was the teacher that wrote those terrible things about him. Everyone starts somewhere. So there are your productivity tips for the day and your homework. I hope that this has been a very helpful course to you, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the future. Goodbye.